You're listening to the Perth Property Show, Australia's only weekly property podcast by West Australian experts for West Australian listeners. Catch your latest episode every Monday at 7 a.m.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Perth Property Show. My name's Trent Fleskens, your host. As always, guys, is an update on the market. No changes, really. We're still seeing over 800 properties settling every single week. Stock on market seems to have stalled at about 2,700 properties, which is 5x down on a balanced market. We still haven't seen it crack 3,000 this year, and we're already in March. Who would have thought, right? Rash Danjal, we got that one wrong. We're still waiting to get into the 3,000s. None of us would have thought of that. What that means is, as long as we are still sitting under affordability threshold with regards to interest rates, prices will just keep rising across the board. If we don't solve this problem, we'll keep creating a new one. And this week, we are doing a suburb update on a suburb we haven't dealt with for over 6 years now. The last time we spoke about Kalamunda was October 2019, and the median house price was a long way off what it is today. I'd like to get an update from the protege of the man that came in 2019, Nigel Aldridge. It's Chelsea Owen. Chelsea, thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
You made the move up to Ray White and up the hills recently.
Yes.
What was that?
The main reason for my move was looking for change, looking for growth, and looking for a new home.
Nigel's a pretty good grandmaster to be able to work under as well. A few lessons to be learned from him.
Yeah, most definitely. I feel quite lucky, but working alongside him and learning is an absolute privilege too.
I think the area of Kalamunda too, in terms of its population, its relationship with agents, with your local butcher, your baker, still very much a village, town centre space, isn't it? Where you've got those long, deep-seated relationships. I guess there's a nice little pathway there that comes with being in his team and I guess coming up the ranks with those relationships too, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, let's talk about Kalamunda itself. There's a lot to talk about when it comes to the growth in the suburb, but also the dynamics, buyers, sellers, who's going up there, having a tree change, whether the price points now reaching nearly that $1 million space is changing the face of the suburb too. And also, I guess the conversation needs to be had around development, supply, and the general dynamics on the ground now that we've had an interest rate rise in the last few weeks as well, how that's impacting things. There's a lot to talk about, and you're the lady these days to talk about when it comes to Kalamunda. Firstly, let's do a bit of a rehash, if we can, on the suburb itself.
Sure.
How would I know I'm in Kalamunda?
As soon as you drive up the hill, Canning Road, you're faced with the beautiful roses, the outlook, usually something going on in a park, and things just slow down. It's certainly a lifestyle up in Kalamunda and the people itself as a community.
Okay. Now, it's got its own local government. It's actually one of those ones where, and I feel like the Hills is a bit overrepresented in that way. It's got Kalamunda and it's got Mundaring as well.
Yes.
Across that area. I feel like, to be frank, that could be one local government, but lucky Kalamunda for having its own people. The homes there, I guess, are mixed, right? We're not hills in terms of everyone's on stilts.
No.
We're certainly nowhere near sea level, are we?
No, and that's one thing I love about Kalamunda. There is so much diversity. You go down one street, you'll find a beautiful federation, down to new builds, developments, units. There's such diverse opportunities and different types of housing everywhere.
If I wanted to get my kids into school,
yes.
Do I want to be in Kalamunda?
Absolutely.
Why?
You've got so many different options. So whether you're looking at primary school, high school, private or public options, there's so many choice. Recently, I've just moved my son to Mary's Mount, and that's Gooseberry Hill. It's certainly a catchment point there. You've got Kalamunda Senior High School to your private schools, St. Bridget's a little bit further out in Lesmurdie, to Mazenod, right the way through to Kalamunda Primary School and so many more. Yeah.
I guess that's the main driver for a lot of people, right? Is
Yeah.
setting themselves up for the long term. And
Yeah.
I think when you're making that tree change, it's not for a couple of years, is it? It's a real lifestyle difference to being in the city.
Yes.
So let's run straight into a little bit of a retrospective about what prices were looking like back when Nigel was on the podcast in October 2019.
Yeah.
That median house price, what did it look like?
About 570,000.
So you were getting yourself a home, a unit, an investment property across the board at 570. What are you getting for $570,000 in Kalamunda now?
I don't think I could say you could purchase anything for that kind of money anymore.
Okay, so
Yeah.
invariably that does change the face of the suburb in terms of the people coming in, doesn't it?
Yes, most definitely.
And what does it look like? If you could characterize 10 people coming to a home open right now, what would it look like in terms of the split between first homeowners, Upgraders, downsizers, investors.
It's a good question. Certainly noticed that a lot of people that grew up in the hills, so whether they've already owned a home previously, looking for their second home and planning their family or got a couple of kids, they're now moving back. So I probably see 1 in 6 buyers are moving back to the hills.
Okay.
A lot of people that have maybe built a new home out in the outer suburbs, whether it's Brabham, Caversham, are now looking for more land as those kids are getting a little bit older. So there's a lot of people looking for that lifestyle, looking for more space and looking for that community.
So what would that split be between first home owners, investors and
I would
downsizers?
say investors are pretty much out of Kalamunda now, unless you're looking at a unit. First home buyers, it's getting a little bit harder to get in due to price, but certainly downsizers and people that are looking even to upsize families.
You mentioned land size.
Yes.
What's your average block size if you were to pick the median house you'd sell from day to day? How big is that land portion going to
You're
be?
probably looking at about a quarter-acre block still up
Yeah,
there.
and that's sizable, right?
Absolutely.
When I think about
Yeah.
what's available across Perth these days, a lot of them would have started as a quarter-acre block, but a sizable portion of them have been subdivided into 2, 3 or 4.
Yeah.
Is much going on there in that space on those original quarter-acre blocks? Is there zoning to be able to split it up? Has much happened? We've got very different soil type out there, so it's pretty hard.
Makes things a little bit more interesting.
Yeah, it does, right?
It
So
does.
your civil costs are pretty expensive.
Yeah, so definitely as you move closer into town, we're seeing quite a lot of developments that have either happened over the last 5 years or moving in. So a lot of subdivisions, blocks that are now around the 400 to 600 range, which is fantastic, which is closing that gap as well for a lot of those people that are looking to downsize but don't want to leave the area.
And I guess that means new builds.
It is new builds, yeah. So they're still a little bit slow. What we are finding is a lot of the big builders are not building up the hill. If you put that in perspective, you might build 1 or 2 up the hill versus down the hill. There's still a lot of change. So we're seeing a lot of more private builds that are coming through. Quite
Just
a new
people who are
developments.
happy to take the complexity on.
Yeah, absolutely. Recently, we've sold a few in Kalamunda, so 4, 5 lot subdivision 3x2 properties, which are fantastic. And those are just sitting over the 300 square metre mark.
I guess reality is it's not like there's a big land estate going into Kalamunda.
No.
We're also not seeing apartments being developed there at
Not yet.
massive height, are
Yeah,
we?
no,
Not yet. Are you hearing something?
I am hearing things.
What are you hearing?
So there are talks and whispers of a few new developments around the 10 to 15 development sites. So looking at 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom, which I think would be fantastic for the area, just bringing in new people into the area. So whether that's maybe not first home buyers, but just looking to get their foot in the door, there's that coming up. And we've just recently sold a few development blocks that will be shaping their way for some new builds coming through too.
Let's hope, because Kalamunda, if you can characterise it, is a fairly historical part of Perth.
It
That,
is.
like Midland, Armidale, hasn't seen a lot of gentrification in a meaningful way for a long time. Certainly it sits in a higher socioeconomic and socio-demographic space, but it's one of those heritage areas
It
that
is, yeah.
is proud of that heritage, but sometimes that can get the way of some nice progress.
Very true.
When you think about that transition over to today's money, we're getting pretty close to Kalamunda hitting that $1 million club, aren't we?
Yes, and I'm surprised it's taken so long, if I'm
Why?
going to be honest. Like you mentioned before, Kalamunda has always had the perception of having the higher socioeconomic face, but just knowing that the average price is creeping just below that $1 million mark, I thought that we would have been there a lot longer ago. Yeah,
Yeah. There are some suburbs in the hills that are in that space.
correct. And
Yeah.
you can go from one street to go to the next, and there could be $2 million between the two.
Exactly.
So,
And that's
yeah,
probably our view, isn't it?
absolutely.
And I think the only thing holding Kalamunda's median back is probably just the depreciated value of these houses that have been there for a very long time, right?
Yeah,
If you
absolutely.
started having a lot more new houses being built at scale that just had a higher replacement cost,
Yes.
I think we would have seen it tick over quite a bit earlier.
Yeah.
But again, we're talking about a heritage suburb that most people, I think, are probably going in there, getting their, rolling their sleeves up and doing some renovations on a lot of these houses, aren't they?
Absolutely, yeah. And it's, like I said before, there's so much diversity in the area. Around one corner, you could have something that could be 100 years old. Turn the other corner, that you go down to 40, 50 years old, and then you could have more newer builds around the corner.
The 5% government scheme came in October. Obviously, the median house price sits above that number.
It does.
But did it have much of an impact on Kalamunda with regards to the people buying property over the last 5 months in your suburb?
Yeah, I would say more outskirts of Kalamunda, those that were looking to get the bigger blocks. It is getting harder in under that cap of the 850, especially for first home buyers or anyone that falls under those categories of those grants. There certainly was change, but in saying that, prices have risen so drastically, as I was saying, the last 6 months, that doesn't necessarily apply to those people coming through.
Yeah, and I think that those suburbs that have been on the precipice of the $850,000 threshold have noticed it first, in that
Yes.
if they were just under it or just around it, they saw a bit of a push early, and then straight away they've been pushed over, and
Pushed
then
out. Yeah.
those people looking to harness the 5% scheme have just moved on.
Yes.
What will those suburbs be that they're moving to, probably, if you were to have to compromise from Kalamunda? What is your first and second compromise out of Kalamunda?
I feel like people are again getting pushed further and further out. So at some stage you would have been looking at High Wycombe, Forestfield.
Down the hill.
Yeah, literally down the hill, and now getting pushed out further again as far as coming towards Armidale and bits and pieces, because there's just nothing available and those prices have continued to rise.
Are many people going over the hill?
I'm going to say yes, but not as much as what you would have thought it was.
What
And
would
again,
those suburbs be?
so you've got a few out in Bickley and bits and pieces, but again, it's such a diversity of what you can get out there in terms of value.
It's
and that
farmland as well,
it
isn't
does,
it?
yeah, and it jumps really quite quickly.
Yes, it's just a totally different asset type. There's not really much for town centre the second you go over
No,
the hill until you get to York or Northam or something like that.
that's right. That's right.
So it's probably a bit. That's the thing about Kalamunda, is it's sort of your last town before you're calling it a country drive.
Yes, no, that would be a fair point to make. Yes.
We've clearly seen some growth occurring over the last 5 years. I'd like to think that Kalamunda really has just tracked Perth's median. It hasn't outperformed Perth median. It hasn't underperformed. It's running just under doubling in the last 6 years, which is really most suburbs in Perth.
Yeah.
But in order to get a transaction, we need someone putting their house up for sale.
Very good point.
Why
Yeah.
are people selling in Kalamunda at the moment? What's incentivizing someone to sell right now, when I'd suggest most people are assuming that if they hold their property for another year, there's probably more growth in it for them?
So I will refer back to one of Nigel's famous sayings, and it applies so correctly to this example, is one honky nut and you're out of here. And due to the demographic age that has dropped significantly the last 5 years, a lot of these bigger properties, and as you're getting older, it's becoming too much for a lot of people to handle and maintain. So they're looking for something a little bit more less maintenance, a little bit more manageable would be the right way. So a lot of people want to sell, but necessarily can't sell because they've got nowhere to go as well. So it's in that catch
So
22 there.
really, it's a lifestyle change. It's a changing of the guard
Yeah,
in a
it
way.
is, yeah.
Kalamunda's starting to see a real change to the face of who's running the show there.
Absolutely. And to throw some numbers out there as well, the average age now is down to 42, where if you go back, say, 3-4 years ago, you're looking at just over 57, 58 years was the average age. So it's dropped significantly.
Wow.
Yes.
That's massive.
Yes.
Okay. That can't just be people falling off the perch.
No, it's not people falling off the perch. It's people coming home.
Young
It's-
people entering the suburb again.
Yeah, entering, again, it's all about that lifestyle. People that grew up in the hills that are wanting to bring and raise their kids.
That sounds like a real COVID effect. And when we think about how much the Southwest has boomed in the last 5 years since COVID, and the impact of being cooped up and then wanting to essentially have some space, bring the kids up with a more wholesome lifestyle, is Kalamunda nearly just a halfway house to a Denmark or a Harvey or something, where they haven't gone the full hog of being 3-4 hours away, but they've at least gotten out of the city centre?
I feel like it's probably better in the fact, if you look at Kalamunda, you're still only 25-30 minutes from the city. You drive out and you've got that rural, not say rural, but that lifestyle, having that more space.
It's the same
Yeah.
theme, they just haven't gone the full hog.
Yeah, yeah.
And look, there are a lot of, especially in my generation, a lot of people that I know that grew up in the hills and spent most of their time around Maylands or something like that. And they are, I'm watching them, they're heading back up the hill again
They are.
just to have
yeah,
their kids.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, with a lot of these suburb updates, I like to hear some anecdotes. I like to hear some data points, some properties that you've sold a few years ago that are selling now, just to get a real gauge on
What's
what's
happening?
been happening with prices.
Yeah.
Hit me.
Recent example of that is we had a 3x2 unit, beautiful, 3 years old, battle axe as well, in a group of 4. And that had sold for 1.15 6 months ago. Recently, we just resold that one for 1.45 in 6 months.
So, why were they selling in 6 months for starters?
I think For this particular person was a little bit younger, was blessed that she's got opportunities and was moving out of the suburbs and more beachside. But if you put that in perspective of how much that demand is there for that particular type of property.
For a unit.
It's a 3x2, yeah. They're quite nice, they're quite big, but...
Yeah, we're still talking, I guess it's a survey strata
Yes.
property.
Yeah.
You pay that money for a similar property in North Perth.
Correct.
What's going on there? How can
It's
Kalamunda
demand.
justify those prices for survey strata 3x2s?
Again, there's so many people that are looking to downsize but have not got the opportunity to find what they're looking for.
And
They
that's
don't
all that-
want
yeah.
to be in these big properties anymore. They want to be in something that is low maintenance, is close to the city centre, within walking distance, and able to just lock and leave.
And
on
so
the
it was a
holidays.
downsizer buying off a young girl.
It was a downsizer. And it wasn't just one. The amount of interest in that property was insane. Yeah.
Let's talk about those dynamics at the home opens right now. You would hear just as much as me about what's going on across the rest of Perth.
Yeah.
How would you compare the dynamics when you're opening up a house in Kalamunda right now? What does it look like for you the average Saturday?
So average Saturday and Sunday, I know that when we do have a new listing, we are opening those both days. It's usually gone after that first week. So for the right property.
How many people are coming through the door?
I'm going to say between 10 and 15 would be a good average. For different properties, obviously, it's a little bit more. For something that's a little bit higher in price, then those numbers drop a little bit too.
And of those 10 to 15 on your medium place in Kalamunda right now, how many offers are you getting?
I'm going to say 5 to 6 offers.
Wow.
Yeah.
1 in 3 is
Yes.
pretty serious. And then what's going on with regards to where you end up versus where I'm assuming you're from price, like most agents are running right now and started?
I'll give you a take on this as well. So I think the biggest thing is, for me, is pricing that property correctly. I'm a big believer that if it's going way over asking price, then it probably wasn't priced correctly to start with. But in saying that, a property that is priced correctly to start with, I think given that range to that sellers, that we're seeing a bit of growth there, but it's not excessive.
Okay, so essentially what you're trying to do is accurately price it and
Correct.
getting 6-ish offers on these. And if you can squeeze the extra 5-10% out of it,
Then we're
it's a
certainly
great
all there
weekend.
for it. Yeah.
What's the driver behind a week and not 2 weeks? Is there just a belief that you've flushed most of the market out in that time already and you want to keep them hot?
No, not necessarily. And if I'm being honest with you, we much prefer to prolong that process for as long as we can. And the reason, unless you're scrolling on realestate.com every single day and you don't make that first or second home open, you've missed the boat.
Yeah.
So that's something that we do take into consideration as the market has changed and adapting with that. But yeah, usually after first weekend, second weekend, usually it's definitely signed off and
Yeah, got you.
yeah, ready to go.
Any tips for the home buyers that are coming through your door right now that are missing? I'm sure you've seen people for 6 months, 12 months who keep coming through and just
Yeah.
can't snag anything. What aren't they getting?
That is a good question. So one is being organised. So whether that is having your pre-approvals in place, not thinking too long about the property and making those decisions. The other thing that we're seeing a lot of is subject sales and what to do and how to handle that as well. So
From a buyer side?
from a buyer's side, yeah, absolutely. I think everyone up our way is, I shouldn't say everyone, but a lot of people are caught in that trap where they've got something to sell versus someone that's already sold out and is cashed up, ready to go. So a lot of people are missing out from that.
That seems to be a
Okay.
massive problem, and that's why I keep bringing it back to that point of mobility being the issue. Affordability is clearly not the issue. If it was, no one would be buying anything.
Yeah.
It's mobility. The impact that this low stock on market situation is having is that there are, we reckon, 4x the amount of people currently sitting there wanting to put their property on the market, but can't because they don't have confidence they'll be able to move and they don't want to be homeless. So you're explaining that same thing again in a different part of Perth,
Yeah.
which I guess is holding up some listing stock for you as well, right? I'm
Yeah,
sure you know of many properties that are right there
Literally
ready
creating
to go.
spiderwebs every single day. How do we make that one to get them there? And then how do we maneuver to
And you
make
just
this
become a
work?
matching service.
You do. Yeah.
Jenny, I've got this new one coming up. I know you want to list with us. How about we put you in front of this person and see what can happen?
And that's a good example. Even on the weekend, I had a lady that come through one of my home opens. She's got a beautiful big property. My sellers would be very open to having a look at those. And we're having those conversations that afternoon. She's just trying to get in while we're just trying to find them something else that may fit and could work with them.
What offer terms working for buyers right now as an expected minimum in terms of finance days, settlement days? What do you expect to see come across your desk before you look at it seriously for your sellers?
So I've definitely seen a bit of a change in a sense of time frames that have been offered. So that has certainly dropped, at least over the last year.
Used to be 28
days would
Yeah.
be your standard. We're now seeing 14 to 21 as your average, and some of them are getting through even quicker than that. So putting the pressure on those brokers too, just to get them ahead of the pack really when making their offers.
Are you seeing a lot of cash offers?
We are certainly more the last few months than what we were for a period of time. And that is those people that have got options and have sold out, have got somewhere to go and just literally are ready to go shopping.
How many of those would be young people who aren't really cash, but they're putting their balls on the line?
We don't see as many, not as many up the hill. You
Okay.
occasionally see them here and there, but no, not
So most of
so
those
much.
cash offers are people
Are genuine.
bridging finance,
Yeah,
moving
bridging
across.
or
Yeah.
have sold out already.
Yeah. Okay. And then to protect your sellers and get them moving, are you seeing many of them mandating a settlement time or a rent back that is more flexible for them?
So I'm certainly seeing sellers, it is a seller's market. So depending on the vendor's current conditions, we're working with buyers will wait longer for the right property in order to make that transaction work. If a seller needs somewhere to go, we're seeing longer settlements, but quicker terms. On the flip side, everything's by negotiation I've just lost where I was going with that.
And I guess bridging finance really has to start becoming part of the equation. A good mortgage broker is arranging that for you as a buyer,
Yeah.
because that subject sale is, as you're alluding to, a real roadblock when it
can
comes
be.
to competing with other people. And that might be a bit of the advice coming out of today, is if you are someone looking to right size, downsize, transition out of that property, and you have an ability to be getting bridging finance, speak to your broker about it.
Yeah,
Solve those
absolutely.
problems for the seller and the sales agent, so you can say, bang, here's my bridging finance. I'm all good. I've got that property down the road for 2 mil. I'm buying this for 1.4. Nothing to see here. I'm as good as cash.
And that's about as good as you can get.
We spoke about that median house price being at $970,000 now. Who would have thought? What am I getting for that now in Kalamunda?
So a 3-bedroom, 1 bathroom on roughly 1,000 square meters.
So you just your original
Your original
brick and tile?
brick and tile.
And if you had all the money in the world, Chelsea Owen, where in Kalamunda, what street would you be buying on?
I'm going to say around Elizabeth Street, close to Stoke Park, quick walk to the pub if you want a cheeky beer on the weekend, but something central and you've still got that diversity of different properties around you.
Chelsea Owen from Ray White, Aldridge and Associates. Thanks so much for coming and giving us an update on Kalamunda, and also just some advice today about the negotiation table and what's not working and what is working. Have a good one, guys.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Perth Property Show. If you've only just joined the conversation, you can catch up by heading over to our website, perthpropertyshow.com.au, subscribing to the podcast, or joining our Facebook page. Don't forget to tune in next Monday at 7 a.m. for more expert insights, local analysis, and suburb spotlights. Happy hunting!